Hi, well, good morning and welcome back to 3R Guitars. Not quite sure that it's morning actually, being an old git I get quite lazy every time I get up, but it's the advantage of retirement. Anyway, we're doing this Strat, late 60s Strat build, and yesterday we got most of the body done. I had meant to weigh this actually. I might do that when I go in for a coffee, just to let you know what we're down to before chamfering and belly cut and things, but I'm really well happy with that. Like I say, it's basically a clone of that Lashings body, which I've got like that renowned thing of being absolutely correct, but not too worried about that. I mean, even looking now, it's a three-piece body, and actually you can see it more. I can see it more in my phone. You can see the line there, and how, like, I mean, it just goes above the pickups. So, with a pick guard, you can see we've succeeded in like covering a lot of that line, which is great. And you have the bridge won't cover it, but I think it'll, do a bit to distract the eye, sort of thing, away from the. But I mean, you can hardly see the joint there, and then we've got another joint just there now, and you can't. Oh, bloody hell! I mean, it's so difficult to see, but it goes across. I can't even see it. Oh, I think it's there. So you have the jack socket plate in the way, plus you'll have the pick guard again, so you'll hardly see that, and generally you can see them on the end grain more. I mean, you can see that joint there, but the actual grain actually does run around I mean, I think what I've done is I've obviously put the bits of wood the other way up, because the grain in the centre large bit is like that. I mean, obviously it's flat sawn, and then you've got this grain goes this way, so the grain kind of goes like that. It matches in. It doesn't so much there. If you look there, you can see it, but then again, Fender were really clever with their grain matching and stuff, and that's why I took a bit of care with it. Plus the fact the edge is sprayed black, so you never see the edge. I mean, one of the things that very disappointing with Fender in later years is, long after it was Fender and long after it was CBS, but I was repainting a Eric Clapton signature guitar for somebody quite a long time ago now, and they wanted it like a change from whatever colour it was to a candy apple green. And when I stripped the paint off, it's a high-end guitar, isn't it? One of those. It was a 5-piece body underneath. I mean, it's made out of planks, and then the top and the back were veneered to make it look like a 1-piece body kind of thing. But they obviously can't veneer. Let me get this body. They obviously can't veneer the belly cut, so the top was veneered, to cover all the joins, and I think the forearm bit was veneered because it's like a flat bend down, so that was okay, but they couldn't veneer the belly cut, so the veneer just came to there. I mean, it's okay, it's a solid cut, but then I've seen Fenders where they started using a lot of pieces of wood to make up the body, and when they spray the black around the edge, they spray all this black as well, so you can't see the edge of the veneer, and like it just is wrong. It's just very disappointing, how they sort of cost cutting and things like that, and to use a 5-piece body on a very high-end guitar is Ugh. But yeah, so anyway, today I thought I'd give the body a bit of a rest. I just don't fancy hacking away to do the belly cut and stuff, so we'll put that aside and we'll move on to the neck. Now I have a large headstock template for a Fender neck, and yeah, I had that, and I'll explain why I've got that in a little while. So basically we'll be cutting neck out of this piece of maple sort of thing, which is absolutely fine, you know, so that's good. Now with Fender necks, I've got this picture here and I hope you can see it okay. It's actually two Fender necks that have been cut longitudinally down the middle through the truss rod, or just one side of the truss rod sort of thing, just to show you what they're like. Now they're not the exact neck I want to do, but they're good enough. So here we have on the bottom we have the skunk stripe neck, where the what would it be, the later 70s neck with the bullet truss rod on the end here, and you know the channel is cut in the back, and then they put in the skunk stripe filler piece underneath like that. You know, quite simple, but it shows that the truss rod goes in a fairly consistent curve there. Now the above neck here is like an early, or copy of an early 50s one piece, and the truss rod adjustment is at the heel on this. So you've got the typical crosshead nut and then the anchor point at this end. In this one obviously you've got the bullet nut there and the anchor there, but it's again, it's like got the skunk stripe on it. Now the neck I want to do is a 60s one, a late 60s one, which will be I'll try and find a picture of the aforementioned neck. Probably can't. I'll switch you off and bring you back. And right, here you go with the necks. It's not a very good picture, but I mean, I'm sure you'll know anyway. We went from, like, you know, this is a 1954 Strat, 57, 61, 66, and you can see that in 54 it was basically the one piece neck that didn't have the separate fingerboard. It was just an inch thick piece of maple that was carved into a neck, routed out the back for the truss rod put in, and yeah, I mean that was basically it. And 57 would have been the same, and then we've got a 61, and you notice the absence of the skunk stripe there, and then we've got a 66, absence of skunk stripe. So the truss rods on these necks were put in under the fretboard. Now when Fender had I'm not going to go into great detail, but when Fender had all maple necks, the story goes that they were a bit upset that you know, the fretboards were marking up a lot and going dark like they typically do, you know, where the fingers press the strings down, and they didn't look very glamorous on TV. Everybody else was using rosewood fretboards. So I've forgotten, I think it was 1959, they first introduced what's known as the slab board neck, and that is just basically a flat slab of, you know, like any modern neck, a flat slab of rosewood on top of the maple. And then after, I think the slab board neck lasted till about 1962, and I don't like those necks very much, because I think they have inherent structural problems, but for some reason. And then in 1962 they started with their veneered necks. Now with the veneered neck, you have, again, let me get back to you. Right, so back again. This is a slab board neck. You can see that straight join or flat join between the fretboard and the neck. And again, just here's a typical feature of a slab board neck, this slight curve, again where the fretboard runs into the headstock sort of thing. Now on the neck I want to make, the veneered board neck, the rosewood looks as though it's just curved. The neck is carved to a radius. Well, basically all Fender necks up to God knows when in the 80s were a 7.25 radius curve on the fingerboard, and the neck I want to make has basically a consistent thickness fretboard which curves on the bottom gluing surface as well, so it's like no, it almost looks like a veneer squashed on there sort of thing at a curve. And typically these are pictures of the top nut there. This is a slab board which I've just shown you, this curve here, and then when they got later, from 63, they started doing these veneer board neck, where the neck, you can see the curved join there. And what basically happened, they started off a bit thicker, and then in the 70s they got like the veneered board got much thinner, and that's the neck I'm going to go for. Now the funny thing is well, I've finished explaining that. I'll get more set up and then get back to you. Just to get on with the building of it, I think I've marked the neck out on this bit of maple, and I'm just going to rough saw it out now. Again, I'm going to go very close to the line, you know, for the same reason as the body. I don't want to wear out my router cutters, and maple is bloody hard. So yeah, I'm just going to carefully cut out this. I won't record it. Right, well here we go. I've sawn this out now, and this is really light as well. Like I say, when I go in for a coffee, I will do a bit of a weigh and let you know. Oh, I've got to cut that bit there. Just let me cut that. Sorry about that. You can hear how much more the bandsaw has trouble cutting maple than the order for the body. Really wish I had a new narrow bandsaw blade. So here we go. I mean, that's just the neck blank. I thought I'd spill the beans a little. I do actually have a part made neck that I want to reproduce, and I wouldn't be making this neck if it wasn't for the videos. But here's one I prepared earlier. This neck I made years ago up to this sort of stage. It's exactly the neck I want to reproduce. You can see the curve of the fretboard join there, and that's what I'll be doing. And again, I mean, this isn't finished yet, it's got a long way to go, but the curve here as well is partly there. Yeah, so this is what I want to reproduce, although this has a 7.25 radius on it, and I don't really want that. I want a 9.5 radius, plays better I think. But what I'll be doing is making a neck that looks as though it's been refretted, so it will still have the 7.25 inch radius join with the neck, but have a slightly flattened fretboard. And that you know, I'll be doing I mean, when Fender did the veneer board necks, they started off quite thick, the veneer, and as they got into the 70s, they got thin. So I mean, the frets were really pressed more as much into the maple sort of thing. So I'll be doing a reasonably fractionally thicker fretboard than that. So I mean, actually this has been sanded down a bit clumsily on the corner, so that looks really thin there, but you can see the thickness of the board there sort of thing. But I'll be going a bit thicker than that, and the early ones, like I say, were a bit thicker anyway. But anyway, the first thing we want to do is actually get the neck down to the right thickness. Now on these, I think the neck thickness, the maple thickness anyway, is about 23 millimeters. So let's have a look what we've got here. 23, yeah, it's 23 exactly, 23 millimeters. I mean, that's absolutely perfect, 23 mil. So the first thing I want to do is get this down to 23 millimeters. So I'll be passing it through my thickness planer, and we'll go from there. Oh, I don't know whether it's my phone packing up or whatever, but like anyway, here's the neck thinned down to 23 mil. If we go on the side there, oh, let's get a better one there, reading. We're 23.2 millimeters thick, so that's fine. I've screwed the template on, and I put one screw here that's into, well, you won't see it because it's under the fretboard, so be no screw hole there. And equally I put a screw up here, and we'll be thinning down the headstock obviously, so that's only screwed into waste wood, so you won't see that. The one thing with a template this long made in MDF, it can be a bit flappy, so be very careful that the bearing stays on the outline when you're out round it. So that's what I'll be doing next, just doing that, so that's all good. One thing, when I was actually the reason why I've got this neck half made is years, oh, and it's been lying around for years, but I always make two of things, don't I, just in case one goes west. But I never finished this because the first one was okay. A guy had, I can't remember what year Strat it was, might have been very early 70s 4-bolt neck Strat, with this type of neck, and it was back in the days when when the really thin, fast, wiggly necks were in for like heavy metal, and he decided, you know what, I'm gonna thin down the neck on my Strat, and ended up making an absolute shambles of it. I mean, from memory, I think he'd actually cut into the truss rod cavity in it, and the guy was distraught, and asked me whether I could fix it, and I said, well, it's unfixable, and you can't take the fretboard off these necks. So I said, the only thing I can do is make you another neck, and he decided to go ahead with it, and that's why I've ended up with this. And it also gave me the opportunity to quite closely examine this type of neck, which is just happened to be, I mean, one of the reasons why I took the job on, because it was one of my favourite eras of Strat, and I thought, well, it would give me a good insight into the details of it. So anyway, let's get on and do this neck, round it. Here we go, just routing this neck. I mean, one thing I was saying earlier was like, oh, I don't know whether I like it. This has got all lumps on it of glue and shit. No, I think I will do it the bearing at the top. I mean, this is an old template and it's got some spots of glue in it. I was going to run it this way up, but you can see, so I'll just drop it down and use the bearing on the top. See how we line up there. I think we're all good. Yeah, and when you route, the cutter turns that way, and you know, you want to be preferably pushing into the cut, not with the router driving the thing through. You know, if the router turned this way, you know, you'd be going with the direction of the router. You want to be going against the direction, pushing against the cut ideally. Yeah, so let's just do a bit of this then. Sorry, I've got a bit of a bad back today. Struggling a little. Well, that's all that snowy stuff done. One thing with Fender necks, it might be just me, but I hate routing round this bit here. You don't know where the grain comes out, so I tend to leave that, finish that by hand. I mean, you know, if the cutter's coming this way, it suddenly hits end grain, it will just tear out a huge chunk there. So I tend to be very careful with that, and also that bit I leave on there, because if you run the router cutter off the end, guarantee it'll split that away. I mean, maple is so much harder than I've got a bit more routing to do there actually. I can see I haven't done that, but it's so much harder than like mahogany and stuff. I'll just route that a little bit there. You know, in all fairness, I think this cutter I've had for a long time could be sent back for a sharpening, but you know, you can see, you know, the burn marks with you know, the cutter on here, and I wouldn't get that on mahogany. I mean, I might be running it at the wrong speed or whatever, I don't know. So anyway, I'm always a bit glad to get that over with maple. You know, it's much harder to do, and just altogether a bit more of a worrisome job. So nice to get it done anyway. We're there with that. Good. Well, here you go. Here's the neck with the template taken off, and you can see what I've done. I've actually routed round just this little bit off there with my handheld router, so it gives me a guide then to run the sand around it. I'll use the Linishing sander that I've got, the bobbin sander, just to get this to the right shape, and then we'll be good with that neck. Because you can also see this bit here, this curve in here, my router, that big router bit I use, is too big a diameter to go fully into that curve. So again, I've gone round with just the small cutter and the handheld router, and done that a bit nicer. So I don't want to have the template on when I'm sanding on the sander. That if I touch the template, I'll ruin the template. So I'll get on and just sand that now, and you know, we'll have a finished plan shaped neck. One thing, excuse me, it's got a bit of sawdust in my eye. One thing I do very early on in the production of these necks is I actually drill the tuner holes now while the neck is a flat like lump, and before you know you cut this down thinner or anything, which makes it awkward to sort of mark out the holes. I mean, I suppose you could do them on the back, no problem, but I do it now because, you know, you've got waste wood on the front here of the headstock, so you can screw into that. And I've made this like template with the 6 tuner holes on it exactly spaced, and the edge of this bit of metal lines up with the edge of the headstock there, so there's no problem with the the spacing of the tuners away from the edge or anything. The wooden template, one of the wooden templates I have, has the position sort of this way of the tuner holes, so I draw through that and just line it up. So now these are the right size for the vintage tuners. I think they're okay for F tuners as well, but they're a good starting point, so I'll get those drilled now. So here we are, just simply drilling the tuner holes. I like to do it flat on the bed, not a block of wood, so you know you're drilling the hole through perpendicular. But you know, these are like I say, these are the right sizes for the size holes for the vintage ferrules to go in, so just match the there we go. So we're basically through with those. I don't drill all the way through because you tend to get a lump on the back kind of thing, and when you move it around in here, so you'd have to clean up after every hole, but I can just quickly go through with those when it's all done. Interestingly, I did this when I built this. It looks old, doesn't it? This template was for sort of old Telecasters sort of thing, when I did build a few relic Telecasters, and these are the holes for the back string, you know, the string through on the back. But I found that these vary a little bit from guitar to guitar, so but anyway, yeah, and that's a little slot cut in there because I used this as well to do the keys for my my hurdy-gurdy making. So there you go, multiple template, but that's that done. Okay guys, now it's time for you to concentrate. I was actually quite proud of this contraption I made. Obviously one of the, you know, the difficult things to do is actually a Fender truss rod. I mean, I don't really know why they made them so like complicated, and they just didn't put a straight truss rod in. I've got no idea, but they obviously decided this was the best way to do it. I mean, originally Fender didn't even bother with truss rods in necks, and you know, Leo Fender's argument was, well, if the neck bends, just chuck it away and bolt another one on. But you know, they obviously went to the truss rod, and they had this curved truss rod. Now it's difficult to do this. First of all, you've got to do a curved channel. Now the truss rods are basically not much different to a Gibson truss rod, which I've showed you. Let me get the bits for that. This isn't really like quite correct, but basically, you know, you've got your 3/16 bar of mild steel, and you've got a barrel on the end, you know, that's the anchor point, and on the other end you have one of these style Fender crosshead nuts on the come on, get out. I'll get there in the end, don't worry. Yeah, so you've got one of these typically in the neck heel, so that screws on there, you know, on the end of the rod, and then on the other end, wrong size thing, but you have like your truss rod nut, your truss rod anchor point, Now the truss rod is bent to a curve, so it's something, you know, getting on to that. And the difficulty you get is that at the end of the neck here, this hole is not like parallel with the fretboard or the back of the neck. It actually has to slope downwards at the same, like, you know, angle as the truss rod, so this, you know, this goes down. You can see, oh, I'm showing you, honestly, it's not even in the fucking camera, is it? But yeah, so this hole has to slope downwards at the same angle at the beginning of the rod is on. And if I slip this in here, you can see, you might be able to see that that's slightly going downhill, sort of thing. If you have this parallel, you know, the truss rod at the end here is going to come up its slope and then sort of bend straight, and you won't get a decent pull on it to straighten the neck. So that hole has to go down at an angle. And equally at the other end, say this was the anchor point, which is somewhere around the first fret, I think, the anchor point can't go in straight, because again the truss rod would have to bend downhill. So the anchor point has to go in at a slight angle. Now when I first built these type of necks, well, generally it was actually more the skunk stripe one for Telecasters, I used to just do it by eye, and it was really hit or miss. I mean, the number of necks that the truss rod worked smoothly and everything like that was like a bit of a joke, really. And I decided that, you know, this is not going to work. So I built this jig here. Okay, now let's start off with the basic clever bits of it. I had a local engineer make up these blocks on each end, and let's take this one as the easiest one here. When I drill the anchor point, I've got them all measured out on here. The neck clamps in, fits perfect, held in place. So when I screw this in here, this actual hole slopes that way, and I put that in there. I doubt if you can see from there, but it actually like slopes backwards, sort of thing. So when I've got to use this as a jig to drill the hole, and then that is at the correct angle for the truss rod. Now with the truss rod, you can see on here that these end guides are are curved at the right angle for the truss rod. So this, these, sorry about this, these are a radius, the right radius for the truss rod, and this metal block where the anchor point goes in, that is perpendicular, so this hole doesn't go straight down, it goes in that way a bit. So that I need basically that angle for the anchor point. So that's been drilled at that angle when it's screwed down. So drill that, that's perfect. And then what's next as well is here I've got where is it? Equally an angled hole through this metal block that I can drill the nut hole with. But not only that, you don't have to drill the nut hole, you have to drill a hole that's the same diameter as the truss rod. Okay, So first of all, I slip that in there, drill the truss rod hole, because if you bought the slot right to the end, you know, you need a bit of neck for the, you know, smaller diameter, so the nut will do up against the wood kind of thing. So I drill through there first with a 3/16 drill into the neck, and then when I cut the slot, you can you can tell how deep it goes once you break into that like hole there that you've just drilled for the nut. Then you can take that out and then drill the right diameter hole for the to the right depth for the truss rod nut on the end, and they're all at the correct angle. So this hole in this metal plate is at basically that curved angle there on that bit. So yeah, bit complicated, but oh my god, it makes life easy. I mean, it took me a while to perfect this jig, but you know, it certainly does the job. So basically, wherever I put everything, I've got my router here that follows this curve down here, around that curve. So basically to cut the slot, and then I've also put stops at the end, so I can't cut, you know, too far. It just comes up bang to the stop there and to the stop there, and it's in the right place. So the first thing we've actually got to do, sorry about this, it'll become more apparent when I do it, is drill this 3/16 hole through there, which will coincide with where we're cutting the slot depth to. And when I cut the slot depth, when I reach that like hole, I know I'm at the right depth. So first of all, we'll get a 3/16 drill. Be back. Okay, so let's go through this arrangement again. Right, first of all, we've got the nut, which goes there, but in the neck, obviously. Then we've got the truss rod. We've got the truss rod that goes here. So basically what we've got to do is drill a clearance hole for the nut to the depth of the nut, obviously. Then we need a hole the diameter of the truss rod, 3/16 of an inch, for a little while, and then the slot for the truss rod starts about here. You need that hole there, so the nut has basically got the smaller hole, 3/16 hole, so the nut has got something to bite to, you know, something to land on, sort of thing, when you do it up to pull the truss rod. So the first thing we want to do is basically in this end use our smaller hole jig, goes over the truss rod, put it in here and drill the 3/16 diameter hole. But first thing I do is I use a drill same size as the nut just to start the truss rod hole. Okay, so when I put this guide in, I can actually wedge it into the neck a little bit. So I've not got a clamp on the neck this side, so this serves as a clamp. So I drill a little bit. That should do okay. Now I can push this in, just make sure it's in. Give it a little, where's my hammer? Ooh, there we go. Give it a little tap so it just goes into the wood on the, I mean, I can feel it's gone in now. So that'll stop, the neck now can't move up and down. So basically now what I can do is drill the 3/16 hole in there. 16th hole. It doesn't really matter how far I drill this in, but so this goes in there and I can drill the 3/16 hole. Oh, it keeps pulling it out. It's all right now. So that hole basically tells me where the bottom of the truss rod channel should be. Now I can use my router to go down and do that, do the curved channel. So I'll get back when I'm ready for that. Okay, well I've got my router sledge on now, so I can start cutting this slot. So let's give it a go. So you can see how that is starting to cut the curved channel now in there. So I can just keep going down basically till I meet that 3/16 hole here and get to the bottom of it. So let's keep going. So that's actually the full length of the slot now, because it cut until I got to the depth stops at either end. So just to make sure, when I went through with that drill, you know, we're going to be actually a bit short of the hole. You know, when I come to the end of the slot, it's not going to have cut it. So I'm going to try and drill that a bit deeper, and so, you know, I don't want to be digging down for a hole. I'll have to go right to the end of that. So now we are literally just going to catch that, where that hole, we're just going to catch that hole. I would like it a bit deeper than that, just to be on the safe side. See if I can just squeeze a little bit more out of this drill. Actually, if I take that out, I can probably just get a bit deeper. That's as far as I'm going to get. Right, I can see I'm actually at the end of the slot now, so I should see the hole, which is a relief. Put this back in just to locate the neck, so we can now go back to routing. This is quite a tricky job. I'm noticing this thing is falling out all the time, but there we go. So basically that's about it. I'll keep going down, and when I get there I'll show you the finished job. But you can see, you know, it's coming out nicely, sort of thing. And you know, we are actually, you know, well in the slot there. Just as a check, let's see here. Well, you can actually see that I'm, you know, the drill is actually come out there now, and you can see how well the jig works, how well it's lined up. I can see the top of the drill, you can just see it turn in there. So it's absolutely lined up perfectly. I just need to go a bit deeper. because that drill hole is actually at the you know, at the top of the drill was just there, and I obviously want to be at the bottom. The only annoying thing is like I say, this router doesn't have a depth so let's see what we like there now. Oh, this is... And the way I can actually test this is if I get the truss rod. Yeah, you can see there. I can push it through here and see where we... Right. So you can see it actually come out in there now, but I can't go any further with it, so I'm still not quite deep enough. Just probably another run and a little bit deeper and we'll be good. Like, just see if we can push this thing through. I mean, it's got a bit of a bird end on it as well, but no, we still need to be a bit deeper. I do wish this thing had a screw down. Well, okay there, just unfortunately, just as I was doing that, it's a bit of a long boring video anyway, but my my camera ran out of memory. But if we look at this now, I'll put this centralizing thing in. I'll take it out and just push it, try and find the hole. There we go. And you can see that the truss rod now goes really nicely down the neck, and you know, it will bend into the slot sort of thing, so there's no like stress on it going through there at all, and everything lines up. So what I've got to do now is just drill the nut size hole. Where's the nut that I've got? Forgotten what I did with a nut now. Here we are. Right, here's the crosshead nut. So what I've got to do now is just drill a hole here, like just that deep. So just down to there, and that would be perfect. It's a bit difficult, this, because if you don't drill it deep enough, you know, once the truss rod is in, you can't do anything to make it deeper. Obviously, the only thing you can do is file the nut down a little bit. So it's good to get as close as you can to being perfect for this, but I like to go slightly too deep, and I actually like to put a washer on, because that helps with the you know, with the operation of the nut. The nut is not sort of got a lot of friction on the wood, and you're less likely to damage the wood, you know, undoing or doing the truss rod up sort of thing. It's less likely to crush the wood. So I do like to go slightly deeper, and so we'll go from there, and I'll get ready to drill that now. So it will be, I think it will be this size drill. So we'll just go through there with that, and yeah, that should be fine. I think that's about the right size. We'll check it. Now I need a drill very, very slightly bigger, so I'll go hunting for a drill. Oops. Okay, then we're just doing this. I've just actually, I found the drill. I forgot to switch the video on, but I've actually drilled a hole through there now for the nut. And I just had a bit of tape on it for the stop sort of thing. So that's taken me down, should have taken me down to the right depth there. Now, it's this bit here now. This block does the anchor point. And as you can see with my jig here, if you can see through there, it perfectly lines up with the end of the routing sort of thing. I haven't made the truss rod yet, so I'm going to just partially drill that that hole, and then I'll finish it off when I've done the anchor point for the truss rod. But you know, here's the metal I'll use for it sort of thing. She'll go in there. We just want to check that it's actually sloping the right way, which it is, so it slopes with the curve of the truss rod. So I'll get drilling a hole down here now, and you want to be a bit careful, you know, don't lean on it. You don't want to go through the bottom of the neck. In fact, I am actually going to carefully, I'm just going to put another bit of tape on this drill, because I don't want to, you know, I don't want to go stupidly too deep. I think that'll do me for now. Right, I think that's deep enough to give me a start when I want to like finish off the drilling the anchor point hole. So we're done with this jig now, and that's quite a big job done on the neck. That's fine. Let me get it all out and I'll get back to you and show you the whole thing. Right, here we are. We've got the neck out now. We've got the anchor hole drilled to approximately the right depth. It's probably got to go a fraction deeper, but that's no bother. And we've got all this drilled out now, and you can see how central everything is with that jig. You know, you put the truss rod through the hole, it just glides up the neck, right into the anchor point there. There's absolutely no stress on it that it's going through funny angles. You can see that it's coming out of the hole central there. The other thing we have to try, hate doing this, but just the depth of the nut. You know, let's just give it a light tap. You know, the depth of the nut is really, really nice. It's flush on there. Probably, you know, I'll have enough room to put a little washer on there kind of thing, but you know, it looks genuine, sort of Fender there sort of thing. Now we've got to try and get this bugger out. There we go, got it out. So that's absolutely perfect. You know, the next stage now is to build make the truss rod. Obviously I've got to thread this end. I mean, it's very similar to exactly the same threads and everything like that as Gibson truss rod. So we've got to thread this end and then cut it to length, and thread the other end for the anchor point, and do that. The anchor point is just this standard 5/8 steel. We'll go in there, make that little bit. I don't fancy doing that now. It's like I hate doing metal work, like I've said before. So yeah, we've got all that done now, and you know, that's quite a big job sort of thing. So next job, like I say, is getting the truss rod completely in, and we can go from there. I might actually have some filler strip. This was from the Les Pauls I made, wasn't it? Yeah, that'll be fine for that. This should be the same size anyway, same router cutter, so that's fine there. It fits in, pushes in nicely. That'll be good. That'll do for the truss rod filler strip, and then yeah, we've got quite a lot done really. You know, these necks are a bit of a funny one with a curved fretboard, and we'll get on to how I do that. You know, when we come onto the fretboard. But next step, get the truss rod all in, get the headstock thickness sort of thing, and then we'll be all good. Cheers for that. Complicated one today, but I thought it was worth showing, so we're all getting there now. Oh, hang on a minute. Let's just have a look. Body. Does this fit in here? Oh, not bad. Neck. So we've got something that actually looks like a guitar. Forgot about that. It's not bad, is it? There we go. Yeah. Oh, cool. Cool. Nice. That's all good. And yeah. There we go. Nice and light. I'll get back to you with the weights. I haven't been bothered to measure today, but yep, good stuff. Cheers. Well, hi and welcome back to the Strat build. Yesterday we were doing the truss rod thing with the jig and all that, and it's quite a complicated video, and to be honest, I wasn't feeling the best yesterday. I had a really not terribly bad back, but just a bit of a bad back, so my presentation might have been somewhat jaded sort of thing. The back's a little bit better today. It's amazing what beer can do, eh? But just at close of play yesterday, you know, of course my phone clogged up with too many videos. It's not a very good phone anyway, but so I couldn't record it. But what I actually did is I went round the body with a quarter round cutter just to put a curve round it, and my reason for that was I wanted to plan where these our forearm cut is and the tummy cut on the back, and it was just almost like, you know, looking at that lashings body, you know, you can, a bit oddly, you can, you know, if you've got a curve on it, at least one edge is about right sort of thing. So I just did that really to mark it out. The one thing when you do the curves on the body, don't get fooled, don't go all the way around the body, because you'll make a mess of it, because when you come to the neck heel here on the back, that's not the same curve on the edge as, you know, around the rest of the body. So stop short whatever you do there. I've done that once before and just gone zing zing, and then you've ruined the body sort of thing. You have to start again, or, you know, fortunately, I guess if it's a solid coloured body, then you could stick a bit in sort of thing. But to just be careful of that. But so I rounded it off, like I say, just so I get a better impression of how much of a tummy cut I want and how much of a forearm cut I want. So we'll get back to that later. So we've got the neck now, and the next bit I want to do is thin down the headstock while this surface is still flat, and I'll get in why that's going to work for me. So the next step is bringing this down to, like, I think it's 14 millimeters sort of thing, the headstock thickness. And when you actually look at headstock on the Strat, it has this curve down from the neck, from the fretboard, you know, it curves down, and the curve kind of ends a bit further along than, I mean, it's got to end before the first tuner hole sort of thing. So what I do on this is I basically mark somewhere around the center of the tuner, and that's where it should get down to its sort of, you know, as a ballpark, its first thickness. Now, measuring the I'm sure it's about 13 to 14 millimeters. Yeah, this one's 13.99 millimeters, which is, it's pretty standard. They did vary a little, quite a bit. Now, the way I do this is, I've got a history of fucking this up, basically, and I don't know why, because I used to, like, you know, put it in the bandsaw with a vertical fence and cut, but for some reason I just kept on ruining it, cutting it, you know, it would cut, like, I think, oh, that's fine, and then you turn it over and it would be at an angle. I don't know why. I think probably because it's difficult to settle down and push through sort of thing. So the way I do it now, I just use this is why I want this flat surface on my router table. I just pass it over a router cutter and keep going, and then when I get to, you know, roughly this point here, you know, I just stop, you know, I'll go through there, leave myself a bit of wiggle room, so I can bring it down like this and guarantee that it's gonna be square sort of thing. So what I'll do is I'll just measure, you know, I've got 14.36 mil there. So basically I want this thin down. Somewhere to that thickness, so I've got to take off about 8 mil there sort of thing. So quite simple. I've just put a plain 1/2 inch cutter in here that's sticking up slightly from the table, so I can just pass over it like that, keep going. Yeah, so we'll just do one pass and I'll show you. It's not really worth me carrying on, but you can see basically what I do. You know, obviously I have to go and revisit bits if I haven't got it quite right, but you can see exactly what I'm doing, and it's a foolproof method of doing it sort of thing. So I'll just get on and do that and bring you back when it's done. Well, here we are. We've got the headstock planed down now, and we're 14.5 millimeters, which is a bit thick, but you know, you want some sanding room sort of thing, so maybe another millimeter off in total, I don't know. But the best way to kind of do it is, you know, because you don't want, when I forgot when I did it first in the example, but I remembered then when I was doing it sort of full time, it's very quick if you kind of have a pivot point with one hand and just go through it, and then you can slowly advance it up, and it's very measurable sort of thing. Just keep moving this pivot point up and then go across, but cut into the, you know, the cutter spins that way, so cut when you pull it that way and then go back, move it up, cut, and that way you don't miss many spots that you have to revisit or anything. So I mean, the thing is with sawing it, you know, if you do use the bandsaw and saw it, you've got to like flatten it, you know, you've got to like flatten it off anyway. And okay, you can file that, but filing something that width in in maple is going to be no fun. You've seen me with that safety cutter in other videos, whereas this is in your drill press, and you know, you can sort of adjust your drill press down, and it's just like a planer sort of thing, but quite accurate. You could use that, no problem, but I just find it really quick with the router. I mean, that's taken me like 15 minutes to get that down now, and you know it's absolutely parallel and everything like that, so very accurately done. And we've got this you know, edge now to plane down. The next step now, I suppose, is like, ugh, the bit I hate doing is like making the truss rod, which is, oh, I just, for some reason I really don't like doing it, but it needs to be done at this stage. There's not a lot we can do else, so I'll get you back at the normal workbench and we'll get weaving on that, try and get that knocked into shape. So okay. Right, okay then, I've got this length of 3/16 mild steel in the vise ready to thread the end for the truss rod. Now this, actually the thread on the Fender truss rods is the same as the Gibson. It's 1032 UNF, United Fine Thread, and here's the tap for it, the die for it. You know, you can get these anywhere really, just look up on eBay or something, 1032. There is two ways with these taps. There's a more kind of tapered end, and that's what you want to go down first, but once you've got it started, it's quite simple. I mean, I should have a proper tap wrench, but I haven't for this type of tap. But just squash down initially and just do a few turns, and it should grip. I mean, it would just be so much easier if you had a lathe to do this. And you've got to, like, you know, turn and then back it off to crack the cut away sort of thing. But yeah, it's just kind of boring. I'll switch you off anyway, you don't see me doing this. I'm not going to be much longer anyway. Right, okay, here's the thread. It's cut very nice. And then we've got the nut, so that will thread on there now. Nicely, it's nice and snug. And if you do it all the way up, we've got a nice, say I don't know, 3/16 of thread, too long there, which is like plenty. So we probably want, you know, I'd guess, you know, if it's like I say, it's quite a long thread anyway, but if you have it that much engaged in the nut, you'll have plenty of adjustment in the neck. So what I'm going to do now is get the neck back here and judge the length of the truss rod we want. I mean, you know, I know the everything's in the right place on the neck. So here we go. We've got the nut. So we've got the nut like there. That's going to be there. We probably want like that much engaged in it, engaged in the nut. So we've got at least ½ inch of thread that's going to engage in the nut there, which is, you know, will give you absolutely plenty. And then we can mark off here how how long we want the truss rod to be. I'm just going to add a little bit of length, and I'll explain that, why I'm doing that. So right, we want to just cut it off just there, sort of thing. Yeah, this end of the right. Okay, so we've got the, we've got the right length of truss rod there. That's absolutely fine. I'm going to measure it actually, just to see if it comes out to anything like, I've never actually like known what length a Fender truss rod should be. I've always like done it to like, it's going to be inches, isn't it? 17.5 inches. Maybe that's about right. Seems to coincide with that. Now, one thing I forgot to say was like this end now has to be threaded for the anchor nut, but it's not a very good idea to try and thread on a sawn end. You want to like taper that a little bit. So if I point you over here, you can see just here I've got my grindstone, and that's all I do quickly is just roll it round that, so I just get a little bit of a taper on it. Now I can cut the thread the other side, exactly the same. Take the waste rod out. Just go through the same process, so I'll get you back then. Okay then, now I've threaded the other end. We've got the nut on that end, and I've threaded the other end for the anchor. Now the anchor is just a metal bar, and it's 3/8 of an inch diameter, and it's 5/8 long. So it's about that long. That's the anchor. Now you can buy these, and like I used to have a slack handful, but then I couldn't get them for a while, so I actually just bought a bar of 3/8 steel, and I make them myself. Now the thing is, the way I do it, I've obviously got to drill a hole through this, and it's got to go through the center, through the diameter of the bar. So you've got to be quite careful of that, to get it to go through the center, because if it doesn't go through the center, you'll disturb the, down here sort of thing. You'll like disturb the, the if you have it off center, the truss rod won't go, won't line up properly with the groove. So you want to be careful of that. So what I actually do, first off, I don't worry about the length of the thing. Basically, this is a bit awkward actually, but it's more of a eyeball thing. So what I do is I just file a flat on it. Like I say, I'm not worried about the length at this moment. I'll adjust that later. File a flat on it. And then what you want to do is put a center punch, actually take that out and close that up, put a center punch dot on it in the center, so the drill has got a start. Oh, that's not a center punch. Here we go, use one without a flat end to it. So now you've got a dot to the drill won't wander around the bar because you've got a flat there and a dot sort of thing. So what I'm going to do now is drill a hole through there, and then we can tap that. It's not worth me showing you that sort of thing. You've got to drill a hole the right diameter, because you want to be for the you know, the thread sort of thing. But if you can look up online, and you know, you've got the 1032 UNF thread, and it'll tell you what diameter drill to use to cut a tap in it. It'll give you a clearance hole and also you know, a root of the thread dimension sort of thing, and you want that to be, you know, cut smaller than the diameter of the rod, obviously, because you want to cut a thread in it as well. I mean, I think from memory, like, I mean, I use a 4mm drill, I think so, I can't remember, but I'll look it up. So I mean, this rod is 4.7mm diameter, so if you cut a 4mm hole, that's probably all right to cut the thread in as well. So anyway, I'll get on and do that and get back to you when I've done that. Right, okay, I've drilled a hole through this anchor bar, 3/8 anchor bar. Now on the back I've also done a countersink to it. Now that will become apparent what that's for in a little while. So now what I've got to do is use the die tap to cut a thread in this sort of thing. So exactly the same sort of procedure. I like to leave the bar longs, it's much easier to handle. If you cut it to the 5/8 length, you know, you'd be dealing with a tiny bar that is difficult to lay flat underneath the drill and all that kind of thing. So it really does, you know, just get all the work done on it first and then cut it to size. But I mean, this is just the same process as with the die sort of thing. Nice and simple. Take it easy. Right, okay, to fit this, I've now cut that barrel to length at 5/8 long, and I've threaded it on with a lot of thread, well, I suppose about 1/8 of an inch of thread coming out at the other end. Now that countersunk hole there, what you've got to do now basically is I mean, it's called peening, but smack the end of that till it mushrooms out and fills that hole there. And like, I mean, it's a bit brutal, but you know, clamp it in the vise quite tight because you don't want to go breaking the threads sort of thing, and then just So there we go. Now that will never come out, and what you want to do is either file or grind that back to the 3/8 bar sort of thing, and then that won't move, it won't unthread now. That's there for life unless it's cut off. So yeah, I'll just file it round now. No, actually I'll just use the grindstone, it's bloody quicker. Right, so okay, that's smoothed down now to the diameter, so that's ready to go in. Always have like a final, you know, a final check. And one of the things is this hole here, quite a dangerous hole because there's not a lot of clearance to the bottom of the neck by the time you get you know, this in. So, you know, be careful, don't just sort of, you know, wham that hole through there sort of thing. I measure it at 5/8 deep sort of thing, just a fraction over 5/8, so everything should fit. Now, you know, the you know, with us being careful on how everything goes together, I mean, it's going to be, you know, getting these truss rods in. You don't want to do it too many times because it's quite awkward, but you've got to basically push it through that end, and then locate this end in there and just hit it in, and you can see through there now the what's it. And this is why, you know, that screwed straight on there, so you know that everything is lining up perfect. And if you don't get it lining up perfect, and you know, oh yeah, if that metal rod is slightly, the truss rod is slightly out of line in there, you won't get that on, you know, and it'll just be a disaster. And that's why I made the jig to do it. What I want to do before I actually fit this is what I generally do. Now I'm struggling to get the thing out. Is I want to just wipe a bit of oil over it, because when you glue the filler strip over the top, the oil will stop the gluing the truss rod sort of thing. So I'm just having to unscrew the truss rod from this because, you know, you've got to bend it a little bit to get it out. Go on, Bennett. Come on. I'm actually quite happy about that being a nice tight hole. So yeah, what I want to do now is I'm going to bend the truss rod slightly anyway, so it'll go in. I've got a slight bend on it now, and I've got this just this stuff which is like a WD-40 sort of thing, and I'm going to spray it over the truss rod. And no glue will stick to that, so that's what it's designed for. It's not a WD-40, it's something else. Now we can shove this in and get everything lined up. And it's a bit of a, you know, it's a bit tricky, much more tricky than a Gibson truss rod. Oh, for goodness sake. Right, so we're roughly in now, so saying goodbye to the truss rod finally. Let's give this a bit of a knock in and hopefully everything will be alright. So there we go, the thing's gone in, and let's just check that this screws on alright. Yeah, it's just screwed straight on. So that's the truss rod in there, and you can see how nice and tight it is to the bottom there. We've got to just give that a bit more of a tap down because it's a bit high, but yeah, so that's absolutely perfect, that now, and you won't get, you know, it's fitted so well. And like I say, the huge thing with these is getting the holes to line up perfectly, you know, the slot, and then to line up with the anchor point. I mean, obviously this is the second anchor point I had to build, but it's very quick to do. So there we go, we're all good. Great, coffee time. Right, okay, to fit this, I've now cut that barrel to length at 5/8 long, and I've threaded it on with a lot of thread. Well, I suppose about 1/8 of an inch of thread coming out at the other end. Now that countersunk hole there, what you've got to do now basically is I mean, it's called peening, but smack the end of that till it mushrooms out and fills that hole there. And like, I mean, it's a bit brutal, but you know, clamp it in the vise quite tight because you don't want to go breaking the threads, sort of thing, and then just so there we go. Now that will never come out, and what you want to do is either file or grind that back to the 3/8 bar sort of thing, and then that won't move, it won't unthread now. That's there for life unless it's cut off. So yeah, I'll just file it round now. Right, so okay, that's smoothed down now to the diameter, so that's ready to go in. Always have like a final, you know, a final check. And one of the things is this hole here, quite a dangerous hole because there's not a lot of clearance to the bottom of the neck by the time you get you know, this in. So, you know, be careful, don't just sort of, you know, wham that hole through there sort of thing. I measure it at 5/8 deep sort of thing, just a fraction over 5/8, so everything should fit. Now, you know, the you know, with us being careful on how everything goes together, I mean, it's going to be, you know, getting these truss rods in. You don't want to do it too many times because it's quite awkward, but you've got to basically push it through that end, and then locate this end in there and just hit it in, and you can see through there now the what's it. And this is why, you know, that screwed straight on there, so you know that everything is lining up perfect. And if you don't get it lining up perfect, and you know, oh yeah, if that metal rod is slightly, the truss rod is slightly out of line in there, you won't get that on, you know, and it'll just be a disaster. And that's why I made the jig to do it. What I want to do before I actually fit this is what I generally do. Now I'm struggling to get the thing out. is I want to just wipe a bit of oil over it, because when you glue the filler strip over the top, the oil will stop the gluing the truss rod sort of thing. So so I'm just having to unscrew the truss rod from this, because you know you've got to bend it a little bit to get it out. I'm actually quite happy about that being a nice tight hole. So yeah, what I want to do now is I'm going to bend the truss rod slightly anyway, so it'll go in. I've got a slight bend on it now, and I've got this just this stuff which is like a WD-40 sort of thing, and I'm going to spray it over the truss rod. And no glue will stick to that, so that's what it's designed for. It's not a WD-40, it's something else. Now we can shove this in and get everything lined up. And it's a bit of a, you know, it's a bit tricky, much more tricky than a Gibson truss rod. Oh, for goodness sake. Right, so we're roughly in now, so saying goodbye to the truss rod finally. Let's give this a bit of a knock in and hopefully everything will be alright. So there we go, the thing's gone in, and let's just check that this screws on alright. Yeah, it's just screwed straight on. So that's the truss rod in there, and you can see how nice and tight it is to the bottom there. We've got to just give that a bit more of a tap down because it's a bit high. But yeah, so that's absolutely perfect, that now, and you won't get, you know, it's fitted so well. And like I say, the huge thing with these is getting the holes to line up perfectly, you know, the slot, and then to line up with the anchor point. I mean, obviously this is the second anchor point I had to build, but it's very quick to do. So there we go, we're all good. Great coffee time.